The city was alive that evening, its streets buzzing with energy as neon lights flickered against the darkening sky. Inside one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants, the scene was no less vibrant. Crystal glasses sparkled under the glow of elegant chandeliers, and the faint hum of conversation filled the air. Waiters moved gracefully between tables, balancing trays laden with gourmet dishes. It was a place where luxury met sophistication, a world Daniel Carter knew well. Daniel sat at his usual table near the corner, a spot he had claimed for years whenever he dined here. He preferred it because it gave him privacy while still allowing him to observe everything around him. Tonight, however, his focus wasn't entirely on the menu or the business emails flooding his phone. Something else caught his attention, something unexpected. Across the room, a young woman weaved through the crowded tables, her movements quick but careful. She carried a tray balanced with plates of food, her face calm despite the chaos surrounding her. Her name tag read Emily, and though she wore the standard black uniform of the waitstaff, there was something familiar about her. At first, Daniel couldn't quite place it. Then their eyes met briefly, and recognition hit him like a wave. It was Emily Dawson. He hadn't seen her in over a decade, not since they graduated from college together. Back then, she had been full of life, always eager to share her ideas and dreams. They weren't just classmates. They were friends who spent countless hours studying late into the night, debating philosophy and laughing over shared jokes. But after graduation, their paths diverged. Daniel went on to build his tech empire, climbing higher and higher until he became one of the wealthiest men in the country. Meanwhile, Emily disappeared from his radar, and he never thought much about why. Now seeing her again stirred something deep inside him. This wasn't the same Emily he remembered. Gone was the bright-eyed optimism that once defined her. Instead, she looked tired, almost worn down by whatever life had thrown at her. Yet, even beneath the exhaustion, there was still a trace of kindness in her smile as she interacted with customers. Daniel watched silently, pretending to scroll through his phone while stealing glances at her. He noticed how efficiently she worked, moving between tables with practiced ease. She greeted each customer warmly, making small talk when appropriate, but there was an underlying sadness in her expression that he couldn't ignore. It made him wonder what had happened to her over the years. How did someone so full of potential end up working as a waitress in a fancy restaurant? As if sensing his gaze, Emily glanced toward his table. Their eyes locked again, and this time she hesitated. Recognition dawned on her face too, followed by a mix of surprise and curiosity. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then slowly Emily approached him. "Daniel?" she asked, her voice tentative. He nodded, setting his phone aside. "Emily, I can't believe it's really you." She smiled weakly, clutching the tray against her chest. "It's been a long time. What are you doing here?" "I come here often," he replied. "But I didn't expect to see you. Do you work here now?" "Yes," she said simply, avoiding his gaze. "I've been working here for a few months." There was an awkward pause. Daniel wanted to ask more, to find out what brought her here, but he could tell she was uncomfortable discussing it in the middle of her shift. Still, he couldn't let the opportunity slip away. "Do you have a break coming up soon?" he asked. "Maybe we could catch up over coffee." Emily hesitated, glancing at the clock on the wall. "I get a short break in about 20 minutes if you're sure." "I'm sure," Daniel said firmly. "Let's meet outside when you're ready." She nodded before hurrying off to tend to another table. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. Seeing Emily again felt surreal, like stepping back in time. But the reality of her situation weighed heavily on him. Why was she working as a waitress? What had happened to derail her dreams? These questions swirled in his head as he waited for her return. When Emily finally stepped outside 20 minutes later, she looked even more exhausted than before. She pulled her coat tighter around herself against the cool night air. "Daniel," stood waiting by the entrance, his hands shoved into the pockets of his tailored overcoat. "You didn't have to wait out here," Emily said, joining him. "It's freezing." "It's fine," he replied. "Besides, I wanted some fresh air. There's a cafe down the street, shall we?" They walked side by side in silence, the sound of their footsteps echoing against the pavement. The cafe was cozy, with warm lighting and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the space. They found a quiet corner and settled into a booth. As they ordered their drinks, Daniel studied Emily closely. She seemed older, yes, but not just in appearance. There was a weight to her presence, a sense of resilience mixed with weariness. "So," Daniel began once their coffees arrived, "what have you been up to all these years?" Emily sighed, wrapping her hands around the mug. "It's a long story. Things didn't turn out the way I planned." "I gathered that," Daniel said gently. "But I'd like to hear about it if you don't mind sharing." For a moment she stared into her coffee, as if searching for the right words. Then she started talking. She told him about her dream of becoming a teacher, how she poured her heart into teaching kids in underserved communities. But life had other plans. Medical bills piled up after an emergency surgery, leaving her drowning in debt. Her marriage fell apart and her ex-husband vanished shortly after their divorce, leaving her to raise their daughter, Lily, alone. "I tried to keep going," Emily admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "But sometimes it feels like I'm barely staying afloat. Waiting tables pays the bills, but it's not exactly fulfilling." Daniel listened intently, his heart aching for her. He couldn't imagine the struggles she must have faced, especially raising a child on her own. He wanted to say something comforting, but nothing felt adequate. Instead, he reached across the table and placed a hand over hers. "I'm sorry you've had to go through all that," he said sincerely. "You didn't deserve any of it." Emily managed a small smile. "Thanks, Daniel. It means a lot to hear that, but honestly, I'm just trying to make the best of things. Lily keeps me going." They talked for nearly an hour, reminiscing about old times and catching up on everything they'd missed. By the end of their conversation, Emily seemed lighter, as if unburdening herself had lifted some of the weight off her shoulders. When it was time for her to return to work, she thanked Daniel for listening and promised to stay in touch. As he watched her walk away, Daniel felt a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, he was glad they had reconnected. On the other, he couldn't shake the feeling that he should do more. Emily deserved better than the hand life had dealt her, and as someone who had achieved so much, Daniel couldn't help but feel responsible for helping her reclaim her dreams. That night, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Daniel made a decision. He wouldn't let this chance encounter slip away. Whatever it took, he would find a way to help Emily, and maybe, in doing so, give himself a renewed sense of purpose too. The next morning, Daniel woke up earlier than usual. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation he'd had with Emily the night before. Her story lingered in his mind, her struggles, her resilience, and the quiet strength she carried despite everything life had thrown at her. She had mentioned her daughter Lily and how much she loved her. That detail stuck with him. It reminded him of the importance of family, something he often overlooked in his busy life. As he got ready for the day, Daniel found himself wondering what he could do to help. Money wasn't an issue for him. He had more than enough to solve most problems, but he knew throwing cash at someone wouldn't fix everything. Emily was proud, and he didn't want to insult her by making her feel like charity. Whatever he decided to do, it had to be thoughtful and meaningful. By the time he reached his office downtown, Daniel already had a plan forming in his head. First, he needed to learn more about Emily's situation. He called his assistant, Megan, into his spacious office. The walls were lined with bookshelves filled with business books and awards, but today, none of that mattered. His focus was entirely on helping Emily. "Megan," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I need you to look into someone for me. Her name is Emily Dawson. She works as a waitress at La Belle Vie restaurant." Megan raised an eyebrow. "Emily Dawson? Is this personal?" "Yes," Daniel replied without hesitation. "She's an old friend from college. I ran into her last night and, well, let's just say life hasn't been easy for her. I want to know more about her current situation, her debts, her living arrangements, anything relevant. Megan nodded, jotting down notes. Got it. Anything specific you're looking for? Nope. Just gather whatever information you can. Find. Discreetly, though, I don't want her finding out. Understood. Megan left the room, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts. Over the next few days, Daniel waited anxiously for the results. In the meantime, he couldn't stop thinking about Emily. He remembered how passionate she used to be about education, always talking about becoming a teacher who made a difference in children's lives. Knowing that she had pursued that dream, only to have it derailed by circumstances beyond her control, made him angry. Not at her, but at the unfairness of it all. Finally, Megan returned with a detailed report. She handed it to Daniel, who skimmed through the pages quickly. What he read confirmed his suspicions. Emily was struggling financially. She lived in a modest apartment in Brooklyn, barely making ends meet between her waitressing job and occasional tutoring gigs. Medical bills from years ago still haunted her, and she was juggling multiple loans to keep herself and her daughter afloat. Daniel leaned back in his chair, feeling a mix of frustration and determination. He knew now what he had to do, but instead of simply offering financial assistance, he wanted to give Emily an opportunity, a chance to rebuild her life on her own terms. He picked up his phone and dialed Megan. Set up a meeting with Emily for tomorrow afternoon. Tell her it's about a potential business opportunity. Make sure she knows it's important. Megan hesitated. Are you sure about this, Mr. Carter? People might talk if they find out you're hiring an old friend. I'm aware of that, Daniel said firmly. But I don't care what people think. This isn't about favoritism, it's about giving someone a fair shot. Emily has skills and experience that could benefit my company. Trust me on this. The next day, Emily arrived at the co-working space where Daniel had arranged their meeting. She looked nervous, wearing a simple blouse and jeans, her hair tied, back neatly. Daniel greeted her warmly, leading her to a private conference room overlooking the city skyline. Thanks for coming, he said, gesturing for her to sit. I hope you weren't too busy. It's fine, Emily replied, though her tone betrayed her uncertainty. You said this was about a business opportunity? Yes, Daniel began, sitting across from her. Before we dive in, I want to make one thing clear. I'm not doing this out of obligation or pity. I genuinely believe you have something valuable to offer. Emily frowned slightly. Something valuable? What do you mean? Daniel explained his idea. Over the past year, his company had been expanding into educational technology, aiming to create tools that would improve learning outcomes for students in underserved communities. They needed someone with real-world teaching experience to lead the project, someone who understood the challenges teachers faced daily. You fit that role perfectly, Daniel continued. Your background as an educator gives you insights no one else here has. Plus, your creativity and passion for teaching could inspire innovative solutions. Emily stared at him, stunned. Wait, you're offering me a job? At your company? Yes, Daniel said with a nod. It's a senior position, and it comes with a competitive salary and benefits. Of course, there will be challenges. You'll have to adapt to the corporate world, which might take some getting used to, but I'll support you every step of the way. For a moment, Emily didn't respond. She looked down at her hands, processing what he had just said. Part of her wanted to jump at the chance it was everything she had dreamed of, but another part felt uneasy. Was she truly qualified for such a role? And more importantly, did Daniel see her as capable, or was he merely trying to help her out of guilt? I appreciate the offer, she finally said, choosing her words carefully. But I need to be honest. I'm not sure I'm the right person for this. I haven't worked in tech before, and I don't want to disappoint you. Daniel shook his head. You won't disappoint me, Emily. You're smart, resourceful, and driven. Those qualities matter far more than technical expertise. Besides, I'll make sure you have access to training and mentorship. All I'm asking is that you trust yourself and me. Emily hesitated again, torn between gratitude and doubt. Finally, she took a deep breath. Let me think about it. Can I give you my answer tomorrow? Of course, Daniel said with a reassuring smile. Take all the time you need." After the meeting, Emily walked home in a daze. Her mind raced, with possibilities. Could she really step into a role like that? Would she be able to handle the pressure? Most importantly, could she accept Daniel's offer without feeling like she owed him something? That night, she sat at her kitchen table, staring at a photo of Lily tucked into a frame. Her daughter smiled brightly, unaware of the weight of her mother's decision. Emily knew that taking the job would change both their lives for the better. Still, the fear of failure loomed large. The next morning, she sent Daniel a text. "I'll take the job. Thank you for believing in me." When Daniel received the message, he smiled to himself. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy for either of them, but he also knew they were starting something special. Together, they could create opportunities not just for Emily, but for countless others who deserved a brighter future. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose, Daniel prepared to welcome Emily into his world. Little did he know, this decision would transform both their lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. Emily's first day at Daniel's company felt like stepping into another world. The building was a towering skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan, its lobby adorned with polished marble floors and sleek furniture that screamed luxury. As she walked through the glass doors, she couldn't help but feel out of place. Her new outfit, a simple blouse and slacks, felt plain compared to the sharp suits and designer dresses worn by the other employees bustling around her. Daniel greeted her at the entrance, his presence instantly calming her nerves. "Welcome," he said warmly, shaking her hand. "Let's get you settled." He led her to the elevator where they rode up to the top floor. Along the way, he explained the layout of the office and introduced her to a few key team members. Everyone was polite, but Emily noticed the curious glances they gave her. She could almost hear their unspoken questions. Who is she? What does she know about tech? Why is Daniel giving her so much attention? When they reached her workspace, Emily tried to focus on the task ahead. Her desk was neat and organized, with a laptop already set up and folders labeled neatly. A sticky note attached to the monitor read, "Welcome to the team, Emily," in bold handwriting. It was a small gesture, but it made her feel slightly more at ease. "Take your time getting familiar with everything," Daniel advised. "I'll check in on you later. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." Emily nodded, grateful for his encouragement. But as soon as he left, doubt crept back in. She opened the laptop and stared at the screen, overwhelmed by the unfamiliar programs and jargon displayed before her. How was she supposed to contribute when she barely understood what half these terms meant? Over the next few days, Emily threw herself into learning. Daniel had assigned her a mentor, a kind woman named Rachel who worked in the education division. Rachel patiently walked her through the basics of educational technology, explaining concepts like adaptive learning platforms, data analytics, and user experience design. At first, Emily struggled to keep up, but Rachel assured her that it was normal. "You're doing great," Rachel said one afternoon as they reviewed a project proposal together. "No one expects you to become an expert overnight. Just take it one step at a time." Despite the support, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. During meetings, she often stayed quiet, afraid her ideas wouldn't measure up. When colleagues discussed technical details or debated strategies, she found herself nodding along without fully understanding. She worried that others saw her as a fraud, an outsider pretending to fit in. One evening, after a particularly challenging day, Emily stayed late at the office trying to catch up on her work. She was scrolling through a spreadsheet when Daniel appeared at her desk holding 2 cups of coffee. "You look like you could use this," he said, handing her one of the cups. "Thanks," Emily replied, managing a weak smile. "I guess I'm still adjusting." Daniel pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "How's it going so far?" "It's hard," Emily admitted. "I feel like everyone knows more than I do, and honestly, I'm not sure if I can live up to what you're expecting." Daniel listened quietly, then leaned forward. "Emily, let me tell you something. You were hired because of who you are, not because of some title or degree. Your experience as a teacher gives you perspective that no one else here has. That's invaluable. But what if I mess things up? She asked, her voice trembling. What if I disappoint you? You won't, Daniel said firmly. And even if you make mistakes, which everyone does, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you're growing. Trust me, I've been there too. His words struck a chord with her. For the first time since starting the job, Emily allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could succeed. She decided to stop comparing herself to others and instead focus on bringing her unique strengths to the table. As weeks turned into months, Emily began to find her footing. With Rachel's guidance, she learned how to navigate the complexities of EdTech. She started contributing ideas during meetings, drawing from her teaching experience to suggest practical solutions. Slowly but surely, her confidence grew. Her breakthrough came during a brainstorming session for a new project aimed at supporting underprivileged students. The team was discussing ways to engage learners who lacked access to traditional resources. Most suggestions revolved around advanced algorithms or flashy interfaces, but Emily took a different approach. What if we focus less on technology and more on empathy? She proposed. These kids aren't just numbers. They're people with real challenges. Maybe we should create tools that adapt to their needs emotionally, not just academically. The room fell silent as everyone considered her idea. Then Daniel spoke up. That's brilliant, Emily. Let's build on that. From that moment on, Emily's role within the company shifted. Her input became highly valued, and she was given more responsibility. She collaborated closely with developers, designers, and educators to bring her vision to life. Watching her grow, Daniel felt a sense of pride he hadn't experienced in years. Still, not everyone was convinced. Some employees whispered behind closed doors, questioning whether Emily deserved her position. One day, while grabbing coffee in the break room, she overheard two colleagues talking. She's only here because Daniel feels sorry for her, one of them muttered. Emily froze, the cup in her hand trembling slightly. She wanted to defend herself, to prove them wrong, but deep down, part of her wondered if they were right. Was she truly capable, or had Daniel's generosity blinded him to her shortcomings? Later that week, Emily confronted Daniel about the rumors. They met in his office, which overlooked the city below. She sat across from him, her expression serious. I heard what people are saying, she began. They think I got this job because of you, not because I earned it. Daniel sighed, leaning back in his chair. I'm aware of the gossip, but let me ask you something. Do you believe you belong here? Emily hesitated. Sometimes. Other times I wonder if I'm fooling myself. Well, I don't. Daniel said firmly. You've worked harder than anyone else in this building to prove yourself. Don't let their opinions define you. His reassurance helped, but Emily knew she had to earn her place on her own terms. Over the following weeks, she poured all her energy into the project, determined to silence the doubters. By the time the prototype was ready, she had transformed, from a hesitant newcomer into a confident leader. When the team gathered to review the final product, Daniel stood at the front of the room, smiling proudly. This is exactly what we needed, he said, glancing at Emily. It's innovative, compassionate, and grounded in real-world experience. Great work, everyone, and especially you, Emily. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt like she had finally found her place. The road ahead would still have challenges, but she was ready to face them head-on. And with Daniel's unwavering support, she knew she could achieve anything she set her mind to. Months passed, and Emily's confidence continued to grow. What had once felt like an impossible challenge now seemed achievable. She was no longer the nervous newcomer struggling to keep up. She had become a key player in the company's education division. Her project aimed at supporting underprivileged students was nearing completion, and excitement buzzed throughout the office. Everyone knew this initiative could make a real difference in the lives of countless children. The day of the final presentation arrived. Emily stood at the front of the conference room, taking a deep breath before beginning. The room was filled, with executives, developers, designers, and other team members, all waiting to see the culmination of months of hard work. Daniel sat quietly at the back of the room, his eyes fixed on Emily with pride. Thank you all for being here today. Emily began, her voice steady despite her nerves. Over the past few months, we've worked tirelessly to create a tool that doesn't just teach, it empowers. Our goal has always been to reach students who face barriers most people can't even imagine. She clicked a button on the remote, and the projector screen lit up with visuals of the platform they had built. It featured interactive lessons tailored to individual learning styles, resources for emotional support, and tools to help teachers better connect with their students. Each feature was designed not only to educate, but also to inspire hope and resilience. As Emily explained the platform's functionality, she noticed something remarkable. Every person in the room was listening intently. Questions came later, thoughtful and constructive, showing genuine interest in refining the product further. By the end of the presentation, applause erupted, filling the room with warmth and encouragement. Daniel approached her afterward, his smile wide. "That was incredible, Emily. You've done something truly special here." "Thank you," she said softly, still processing the overwhelming response. "But it wasn't just me. Everyone contributed. And I couldn't have done it without your belief in me. You earned this," Daniel replied firmly. "Never forget that." Despite the success of the presentation, Emily couldn't shake the whispers she'd heard earlier about her qualifications. Though fewer people questioned her presence now, some skepticism lingered among certain colleagues. Determined to silence any lingering doubts, she threw herself into the next phase of the project, testing the platform in schools across underserved communities. Traveling to these schools gave Emily a renewed sense of purpose. She spent hours observing classrooms, speaking with teachers, and connecting with students. Many of the kids reminded her of Lily, bright, curious, and eager to learn despite difficult circumstances. Seeing firsthand how much the platform meant to them reinforced why she had taken this job in the first place. One afternoon, while visiting a school in Brooklyn, Emily met a young girl named Mia. Mia was shy at first, hesitant to engage with the new technology. But after some encouragement from Emily, she began exploring the interactive lessons. Within minutes, her face lit up with excitement. "This is so cool," Mia exclaimed, pointing to a virtual science experiment on the screen. "I didn't know learning could be fun." Emily knelt beside her, smiling. "It's supposed to be fun. That's why we made this for you." Moments like these reminded Emily of her own journey, from struggling waitress to leader of a groundbreaking project. Every child she met fueled her determination to succeed, not just for herself but for them too. Back at the office, Emily shared stories from her visits during team meetings. Her enthusiasm was contagious, inspiring others to stay committed to their mission. Even those who had doubted her initially began to see the value she brought to the table. Slowly, the skepticism faded, replaced by admiration for her dedication and vision. Meanwhile, Daniel watched Emily's transformation with quiet satisfaction. He admired how gracefully she handled challenges and how fiercely she advocated for her beliefs. Their relationship had deepened over time, evolving into something more meaningful than friendship. They spent evenings discussing ideas, sharing meals, and occasionally walking through Central Park after long days at work. One chilly autumn evening, as they strolled along the park's winding paths, Daniel broke the comfortable silence between them. "You've changed so much since we reconnected," he said thoughtfully. "But one thing hasn't changed. You're still the same passionate, compassionate person I remember from college." Emily smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "And you're still the same driven, generous guy I used to study with late at night. Only now you wear fancier suits." They both laughed, the sound mingling with the rustle of leaves overhead. For a moment neither spoke, content simply to enjoy each other's company. Then Emily turned to him, her expression serious. "I owe you so much, Daniel," she said softly. "Not just for giving me this opportunity, but for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." "You don't owe me anything," Daniel replied. "Helping you was never about repayment. It was about doing what was right, and honestly, watching you thrive has been its own reward." His words touched her deeply. She realized then that their bond had grown stronger because of everything they'd been through together. Whether it was navigating office politics, overcoming personal insecurities, or working toward a shared goal, they had faced each challenge side by side. As winter approached, the platform launched officially. News outlets praised it as a game changer for education, highlighting its innovative approach and potential impact. Schools nationwide began adopting it, and feedback poured in from grateful teachers and students alike. Emily's name appeared in articles and interviews, cementing her reputation as a rising star in the field of educational technology. Through it all, Daniel remained steadfastly supportive, cheering her on every step of the way. Yet, as proud as he was of her accomplishments, he couldn't ignore the growing feelings he had for her. He cared for Emily, not just as a friend or colleague, but as someone he wanted to share his life with. One snowy December evening, Daniel invited Emily to dinner at a cozy restaurant near his apartment. Over candlelight and warm conversation, he decided to take a risk. "Emily," he began hesitantly, "there's something I need to say. We've been through so much together, and I can't imagine my life without you anymore. You're smart,
kind, and incredibly strong, and I think I'm falling in love with you."
Emily stared at him, stunned. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond. Then slowly a smile spread across her face. "Daniel," she said, reaching for his hand, "I think I've been falling in love with you too." Their connection had always been rooted in trust and mutual respect, but now it blossomed into something deeper. As they left the restaurant hand in hand, snowflakes swirling around them, Emily felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had taken her down unexpected paths, but she had emerged stronger, with Daniel by her side, ready to face whatever came next. Together, they proved that second chances weren't just possible, they could lead to extraordinary new beginnings. The launch of the educational platform marked a turning point not only for Emily, but also for Daniel's company. Within weeks, it gained national attention, praised for its innovative approach to addressing inequalities in education. Teachers raved about its practicality, while students loved its engaging design. For Emily, seeing her vision come to life was nothing short of miraculous. Every success story shared by schools using the platform filled her with pride and gratitude for the journey that had brought her here. To celebrate the milestone, Daniel organized a gala event at one of New York City's most prestigious venues. It was an opportunity to honor the team behind the project, thank partners and investors, and showcase the platform's impact on communities across the country. As the date approached, Emily felt a mix of excitement and nerves. Public speaking had never been her strong suit, and addressing such a high-profile crowd seemed daunting. On the night of the gala, Emily arrived at the venue feeling both beautiful and out of place. She wore a floor-length emerald green gown, lent to her by Rachel, who insisted it would make her feel unstoppable. Her hair was styled elegantly, and subtle makeup enhanced her features. When she stepped into the ballroom, she barely recognized herself. Daniel greeted her near the entrance, his eyes widening as he saw her. "You look amazing," he said, offering his arm. "Ready for tonight?" "I'm not sure ready is the right word," Emily admitted with a nervous laugh. "But I'll do my best." "You'll be great," Daniel reassured her. "Just remember why you're here, for all those kids whose lives are changing because of what you've done." His words calmed her slightly, reminding her of the bigger picture. Together they entered the bustling ballroom, where guests mingled over champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Photographers snapped pictures as executives and educators exchanged compliments about the platform. At the front of the room, a large screen displayed testimonials from teachers and students, highlighting the transformative power of the technology. When it was time for speeches, Daniel took the stage first. He welcomed everyone warmly, thanking them for their support and dedication. Then, gesturing toward Emily, he introduced her as the driving force behind the project. "Tonight, we celebrate innovation and compassion," Daniel said, his voice steady and sincere. "But more importantly, We celebrate someone who embodies both qualities. Emily Dawson. Without her vision, determination, and heart, none of this would have been possible. Applause erupted as Emily walked to the podium, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. She paused for a moment, taking in the sea of faces before her. Among them were colleagues, mentors, friends, and Daniel, watching her with unwavering support. "Thank you," Emily began, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't think I've ever stood in front of so many incredible people at once, so please bear with me if I get emotional." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "When I started working on this project, I didn't know much about technology or business. What I did know was how hard it is to be a teacher, to pour your heart into helping kids succeed, even when the odds feel stacked against you. That's why this platform means so much to me. It's not just software, it's hope. Hope for students, who deserve every chance to thrive. Hope for teachers who work tirelessly to make a difference." Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "This project wasn't built by one person. It was built by a team of passionate individuals who refused to settle for anything less than excellence. And I am so grateful to each of you for believing in this mission." She paused, looking directly at Daniel, and especially to Daniel Carter, who gave me an opportunity when I needed it most. "You reminded me that second chances exist, and that sometimes the hardest paths lead to the brightest futures." The room erupted in applause again, louder this time. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she stepped away from the podium, overwhelmed by the warmth and appreciation surrounding her. Guests lined up to congratulate her, shaking her hand and sharing stories of how the platform had already made a difference. Later that evening, as the festivities wound down, Emily found Daniel, standing by the balcony overlooking the city lights. He turned as she approached, smiling softly. "You were incredible tonight," he said, handing her a glass of sparkling water. "Did you see how everyone lit up when you spoke? You inspired them." "I couldn't have done any of this without you," Emily replied, her voice filled with sincerity. "You've changed my life in ways I'll never be able to repay." "You've changed mine too," Daniel said quietly. "Before I met you again, I thought I had everything figured out. But you showed me there's more to success than money or titles. There's purpose and love." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Love. They hadn't spoken the word aloud since their confession months earlier, but it hung between them now, unspoken, yet undeniable. As they stood together, gazing out at the glittering skyline, Emily reflected on how far she'd come. From struggling waitress to leader of a groundbreaking initiative, her journey had been anything but easy. Yet every challenge had shaped her into the person she was today, a woman capable of inspiring others, building meaningful connections, and creating change. Daniel wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "Whatever happens next," he murmured, "we'll face it together." Emily nodded, leaning into him. Together they had overcome obstacles, defied expectations, and redefined what was possible. And as they looked toward the future, they knew their partnership, both personal and professional, was just beginning. For Emily, the gala wasn't just a celebration of success. It was a reminder of resilience, courage, and the power of believing in oneself. With Daniel by her side, she felt ready to take on whatever came next. Their story was proof that second chances could lead to extraordinary new beginnings, and that love, trust, and determination could transform even the toughest journeys into something beautiful. Months after the gala, life settled into a rhythm that felt almost surreal to Emily. Her days were filled with purpose, leading meetings, brainstorming ideas, and continuing to improve the educational platform she had helped create. But it wasn't just work that gave her joy anymore. For the first time in years, she felt truly content, knowing she was building not only a career but also a life worth living. Daniel had become more than just a mentor or colleague. He was now an integral part of her daily routine. They spent their mornings discussing plans over coffee, their evenings unwinding together, and their weekends exploring the city or visiting parks with Lily. Emily's daughter adored Daniel, often calling him Uncle Dan and eagerly sharing stories about school or her latest drawings. Watching them interact brought Emily immense happiness. It was clear how much Daniel cared for Lily, treating her as if she were his own. One Saturday morning, Emily woke up early, savoring the peaceful quiet before the day began. She padded barefoot to the living room, where Lily was already seated on the couch flipping through a picture book. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting golden hues across the room. It was moments like these that made Emily feel grateful for everything she had overcome. "Good morning," Daniel said softly as he entered the room carrying 2 mugs of steaming coffee. He handed one to Emily, then sat down beside her. "Thanks," Emily replied, taking a sip. "Lily, what are you reading today?" "The Princess book," Lily exclaimed, holding up a colorful storybook. "Want me to read it to you?" Emily laughed, setting her mug aside. "Of course, let's hear it." As Lily enthusiastically narrated the tale, occasionally mixing up words or making up entirely new ones, Daniel watched silently, his expression tender. He loved seeing Emily so relaxed and happy, surrounded by the people who mattered most to her. It reminded him of why he had fallen in love with her in the first place: her kindness, resilience, and ability to find joy even in the simplest things. Later that afternoon, Emily and Daniel took Lily to Central Park. The weather was perfect, crisp, autumn air, leaves crunching underfoot, and a light breeze rustling through the trees. They strolled along winding paths, stopping occasionally to admire the scenery or watch street performers entertain passers-by. At one point, Lily tugged on Daniel's hand, begging him to join her on the swings. "You're really good with her," Emily remarked as she watched them play together. "She talks about you all the time, you know." Daniel smiled, giving the swing a gentle push. "I care about her a lot. And I care about you too, Emily. More than I ever thought possible." Emily's heart swelled at his words. Over the past year, their relationship had grown stronger, built on trust, mutual respect, and shared dreams. Yet there was still something unspoken lingering between them, a question neither had dared to ask yet. That evening, after putting Lily to bed, Emily joined Daniel on the balcony of her apartment. The city lights twinkled below, creating a serene backdrop for conversation. They stood side by side, sipping tea and enjoying the cool night air. "Do you ever think about the future?" Daniel asked, suddenly breaking the silence. "All the time," Emily admitted, "especially now that things are going well with work and us." "Why do you ask?" Daniel hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I guess I'm wondering where we go from here. We've built something incredible together, not just professionally but personally too. And I don't want to lose that." "You won't," Emily said firmly. "We're in this together no matter what." "I know," Daniel replied, turning to face her. "But I want more. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Emily. If you'll have me." Emily froze, her breath catching in her throat. She hadn't expected him to say those words tonight, though deep down she'd hoped for it. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his gaze. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, Daniel. I want that too." Relief and happiness washed over Daniel's face as he pulled her into a tight embrace. For a moment, they simply held each other, letting the significance of the moment sink in. When they finally pulled apart, Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I didn't plan to propose tonight," he admitted, opening the box to reveal a simple yet elegant ring. "But I couldn't wait any longer." Emily covered her mouth with her hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's beautiful," she managed to say. Just like you, they spent the rest of the evening talking about their future, where they would live, how they would raise Lily, together, and what new adventures awaited them. There were challenges ahead, of course, but neither doubted their ability to face them as long as they were side by side. The next morning, Emily introduced Daniel to Lily as her fiancé. The little girl squealed with excitement, immediately wrapping her arms around Daniel's legs. "Does this mean you're staying forever?" she asked, her big brown eyes wide with hope. "Yes, sweetheart," Daniel replied, kneeling to meet her gaze. Forever and always. Over the following months, Emily and Daniel planned their wedding, a small, intimate ceremony held in the same park where they had spent countless hours with Lily. Friends, family, and colleagues gathered to celebrate their union, cheering as the couple exchanged vows beneath a canopy of flowers. It was a day filled with laughter, tears, and promises of a lifetime of love. As they danced together under the stars that night, Emily reflected on how far she had come. From struggling waitress to successful leader, from heartbreak to healing, every step of her journey had led her to this moment. She glanced at Daniel, his eyes shining with pride and devotion, and knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Their story was proof that second chances weren't just possible. They could lead to extraordinary beginnings. With hard work, determination, and love, anything was achievable. And as Emily looked toward the future, she felt ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing Daniel would always be by her side. Together, they had rewritten their stories, transforming hardship into hope and uncertainty into endless possibilities. Their lives were intertwined now, bound by a shared commitment to making the world a better place, for themselves, for Lily, and for everyone whose lives they touched along the way.